Hello everyone and welcome back to the Belgian Beer Brothers channel. I'm Cedric and I'm back with another beer review, a brew review. I didn't do one this Wednesday because I was very busy. I was at the Horeca Expo, a huge gathering of suppliers, restaurant and bar suppliers. I was visiting breweries and I was so busy when I came home, I really didn't feel like doing another video because I've tasted around 40 beers from 7 or 8 breweries during the day. So yeah, I had enough beer for that day. But I'm back now and we are gonna talk about a beer that I really like. I've had it before, I've had it quite a few times. We are gonna talk about Boulevard Brewing Co.'s Tank 7. Now, I am not gonna tell you anything about Boulevard anymore. For that, you should watch the Flying Start video, which I will link somewhere up here. But I am gonna tell you a little bit about Stephen Pauwels, the Boulevard Brewmaster since 1999. So, in 1999, when Boulevard had existed for about 10 years, Stephen Pauwels moved to Kansas City after already having had a career in breweries here in Belgium. Stephen Pauwels grew up in Eeklo in East Flanders, and his dad was a brewer at Kruger Brewery, known here mainly for Kruger Export. During the holidays, summer holidays, Stephen went to work with his dad at the Kruger Brewery and he really caught the beer microbe. So he went to school and he got degrees in biochemical engineering and an extra degree in business administration at the University of Ghent, which is, I believe, the largest city in East Flanders, also a university city. After his studies, he's held positions at Domus Brew Pub in Leuven, that other university city in Belgium. And he had worked at Riva Brewery. Riva Brewery later on got bought by Liefmans, which in its turn got bought by Duvel Moordgat, which is funny because in 2013 Duvel Moordgat also bought Boulevard Brewery, so the circle is round. As I said, in 1999 he moved to Kansas City to work for Boulevard Brewery. He became Boulevard's brewmaster, and during his time there he developed many new beers, and sales actually quadrupled in the time he's been there. You might even know Stephen because Stephen appears in a lot of podcasts, in a lot of videos, a lot of interviews, and he even has an IMDb page for one episode of How Stuff Works, where they let him talk about the brewing process. When he first got to Boulevard Brewing, the first beer he developed was Zon, Dutch for the sun, and it was a Belgian style wheat beer or a wheat beer. That turned out to become Boulevard's most awarded beer in history. So apparently he does know what he's doing, and of course back in those days the Belgian beers, they got awarded pretty well at the American concourse. In 2007 he introduced the Smokestack series, and the Smokestack series were originally 4 beers bottled in 75 centiliter bottles, and they each had a novelty or a specialty about it, one of which was a Saison. Now apparently the original Saison wasn't the best beer they've ever made, and they've had some problems with the test brews that they made, because they were testing in several fermenters and it didn't seem to go that well. Eventually, one of the fermenters was successful Surprise, surprise, this was fermenter number 7, so tank 7. And I even read in an interview with Stephen, amongst others, that the brewery employees even took a lot of samples from the tank and drank in the brewery patio, after hours of course, and talked about the beer, and they all agreed that this might have been the best beer ever made. Why is this? Well, it is based on the original Saison recipe, a typical Belgian beer. Now I am gonna talk about styles in different videos. As I said with the Trappist video, I'm gonna make a different video about what a Trappist is, and I will make a different video about what a Saison is as well. But some companies will try to make you believe that there is Saison yeast to make Saisons, or in English a farmhouse ale is a Saison. Of course that is not true. You might be able to buy a Saison something or a something something Saison yeast, but that's not the only parameter you get to make a Saison. A Saison has to fulfill 8 out of 10 requirements, and we're gonna talk about that in the other video. But one of the requirements is being well fermented, being quite dry, not a lot of rest sugar. You can get that with different yeast. Most Saison yeasts on the market have actually been isolated from 3 Saison producers, of which Saison Dupont is the largest or the most well known. 2 of the 3 producers use a different kind of the same strain. So actually there's 2 Saison strains. The second one they call French Saison because it's brewed by a French brewery, but it is a Belgian Saison strain or a Belgian yeast strain actually. And the only reason that we only have 2 or 3 strains left is that the beer, the style Saison or Grisette, actually lost popularity back in the 40s and 50s, and I'm well convinced that if the beer had stayed popular, that we would have saved a lot of more strains. Nonetheless, Stephen, just like Ivan de Baats from Brasserie de la Seine in Brussels, is a firm believer that you don't need Saison yeast to make Saison. On the contrary, when he moved to Kansas City, he actually brought his own yeast, and it was a classic Belgian Abbey variant. He propagated that, and that's what he used to make the Tank 7. So what you should expect from this beer is refreshing taste, some fruity hoppiness, and some dryness. So we'll see in a second. Now, in the production of this beer, I already mentioned the yeast. They've also chosen for a combination of barley and wheat. So that tells us that the mouthfeel is going to be medium to full. And they've used 3 hops, a Magnum and a Bravo as bitter hop, and an Amarillo, which wasn't that popular back in those days, but now it's very popular, as aroma hop. Amarillo being quite fruity, quite citrusy, so we should expect maybe some lime, a lot of grapefruit. And because they use quite a lot of hops from the Magnum and the Bravo, it should be quite bitter. So let's check that out. When we're looking at the label, because this isn't the first label and it won't be the last, I guess, this one says farmhouse ale. They also have labels that say American Saison. And now it's quite simple, but it used to be a lot more classic. They had a rectangular label with a lot of frivolous ornaments. So I like the way they are going now. Let's see if the bottle tells us anything more. Strong beer, which is actually funny because another one of those requirements for making a Saison is a light beer between 5 and 6.5 ABV. This is an 8.5. Water, barley malt, wheat malt, inverted sugar, syrup, hops, yeast. We've talked about those already. And not much more to be told. Lovely branded bottle cap, this time with the Boulevard logo. They used to have a nice black bottle cap with the Smokestack series logo. If I find if I find a picture, I'll post it up here. Like I said, I love this beer, so I have my own Tank 7 glass. Yeah, there it is. Immediately I get the hoppy aromas. Citrus, grapefruit. Quite carbonated. A lot of CO2 there. And very malty, very yeasty. A lot of yeast esters. But of course it is a Belgian Abbey yeast, so they are quite known for their esters. Let's call it the smaller brother of the Trappist. Very nice golden blonde color, like more of a straw color, leaning towards the orangey side. Like I said, quite carbonated, so a pretty head of foam. Unfortunately, I have a 25 centiliter glass and a 33 centiliter bottle. And by tipping it, a lot of yeast got loose from the bottom of the bottle, so I'll have to pour in the rest very, very carefully. Like I said, slightly hazy, but mostly straw colored golden blonde, slightly orangey. Less hoppy, more yeast, more malty. Smells quite sweet. Yep. A lot of tiny bubbles. Love seeing that. Right off the bat, we get a combination of a rather dry beer with indeed those citrusy hop flavors. A lot of grapefruit, not so much the lime, but a bit more the zest, the orange peel maybe. Although there's no orange peel in the beer, it's all from the hops. Actually, the Koning Antwerp City Brewery just released a limited edition Nikilo Amarillo, which has a lot of Amarillo in it. Haven't had the chance to try it, but I'm gonna try to get my hands on one of those next week or something. Indeed, still a lot of yeast esters. As expected, medium to even full mouthfeel. But of course, the dryness of the beer adds to that. I don't get the feeling of a highly carbonated beer, however it is. And I do get the idea that the high carbonation rate adds to the refreshing characteristics of this beer. So the citrusy flavors combined with the CO2 and the dryness make this beer very, very refreshing. So on a hot summer's day, which was basically the goal of a farmhouse ale, they brewed this beer in winter, and during the summer they drank this on the fields while working. So you couldn't get too drunk and it had to be refreshing. I do get that slight hint of sweetness. Like a sweet maltiness. Yeah. So basically comes in quite hoppy, quite citrusy, a bit sweet and malty in the middle, and it leaves a very dry, refreshing aftertaste with a lot of grapefruit. So yeah, actually a perfect beer for me. This is everything I like in a beer, even now in wintertime. I would love pairing this beer with dozens of meals. I think anything from salty food like dry sausage and cheese to salads. Yeah, I think there's a lot of possibilities. So, the verdict. Yeah, I think I'm gonna call this like an 8.5 up to a 9, maybe. So yeah, let's call it a 9, a solid 9, a 4.5 in Untapped, because everything is just right with this beer. And like I always say, les goûts et des couleurs, on discute pas. We don't argue about taste and color. This is just absolutely a beer that I like very much. So, as usual, I'm gonna leave it at that because I've told you most that I can tell you, or at least the interesting parts, I believe. If you guys like this video, let me know. Hit the thumbs up. If you want to see more, hit the bell icon. After you subscribe, you'll get notified when I upload something. And it is Friday today, the 25th. So we still have 2 more videos before we start the Brussels Beer Project Advent Calendar. So 24 days, 24 beers. Let's see if I make it. That is, of course, if Bpost would be so kind to deliver the freaking thing. They've already left one at my driveway. It got stolen. So a new one is on the way. And on that happy note, cheers you guys. I will see you again day after tomorrow, Sunday. Goodbye.